Hey, King. Alright. So, let's switch to this song for a sec. Yesterday, let's see, what happened yesterday? It was a little bit of a relaxing thing. We're definitely feeling some fatigue going into the 4th week. We warmed up the same way? No, not really. We kind of double up on the warm-up just to make the warm-up longer. And then we stopped at 165 and then we dropped back down. The whole way, actually. Interestingly enough, there was another update today to OS Laser. And that's, they retroactively returned to the old HP drain. So this was a conversation that was brought up 3 days ago by a random person. Interestingly enough, I think according to the notes, let's look at the notes for a moment. Oh wait, I can't bring it up anymore. But they're reverting to a previous classic, I think, HP drain, or they're trying a new HP drain algorithm. So it'll be interesting if that person make mention of that at another day. I can't really relate to whether the HP drain feels different or not, since I don't typically use HP drain. Yeah, more updates. 9 days ago, before the launch of OS Laser ranking. It'll be kind of exciting for the concerned people. So today, we're gonna try to get back up to our endurance section, see how it feels before we enter the endurance section. And if we're still not feeling it, I'm going to drop down steadily through it like yesterday. So let's find out. I'm definitely a lot more rested than yesterday. At a later day prior to yesterday's session. Today, definitely a lot more rested. Okay. There it is. There's the stutter. Thought I could at least not have one in 2 minutes. So let's keep going. There were two in there. Well, there were two in there. Still kind of a stiffness in my ring finger. I might have to cut the length of the session by half. So I do feel some stress on on the ring finger. Hmm. Alright. They're like 2 and 3. 2 or 3. Little stutters in there. Alright. Well, that's warm up. Not too bad, 30 minutes. A little less. I think today this section and on, we're just gonna focus on keeping our fingers separated. I don't think we're gonna try to control it in any way too much. I'm not quite sure where it is now. Okay. That's a little bit rougher than I thought. Oh, there's some fatigue there. Give it a little bit of rest. Just a little bit. Oh, got a little fatigue there too. Just had a little, just a few seconds of rest. Oops. Okay. Excuse me. Man, that took me way too long to start getting the feeling down. It was like already a minute in before that started to settle down. Hey, let's keep going. Let's keep going. This is where we stopped last time. Or after these. I was like halfway through, felt a little bit more comfortable. And didn't get it. I wasn't clicking there. Maybe for like 10 seconds max. Yeah, we're gonna keep going today. Pretty loose. Being a little bit too fast. Just trying to stay loose. Try to control it as we go back down. But stay loose as possible going up. That's probably going to be what we're going to do from now on for the last 4 weeks. Just stay as loose as possible going up, and then see if I can control it as I'm going down. So far, so good. Didn't have too many of the losing track feeling. Still pretty loose. Not bad, not bad. That was a mixed bag. I felt it clicked a couple times. And then near the end it was stuff that's settling in. The meow. There it is. Shows some fatigue in there. I clicked for a moment though. 1 or 2 moments. Yeah, we're in the endurance portion, so this is the natural flow state. Just keep the fingers loose. Don't try to tense up. There's some tension near the end of the last one. Oops. I got a little excited once or twice in the beginning that it clicked, and then I just couldn't get it back. That was kind of rough. Usually that doesn't happen 170 plus. I don't have the luxury of lining up for long enough to really get the feeling. But that time there was a few spots. We crossed the 1 hour mark. There were a few really, really good moments in there, and I was trying really hard to get it. Yeah, there were some good moments in there, more than usual. Okay, and then now we're no strain on that one. Oh no, yeah, no. That is an endurance problem right there. I wasn't going ahead of it because I didn't have a choice. These are gonna be rough. Actually didn't go as bad as I thought it was going to. That's fine. Going up is such a pain. The focus here is to go up as quickly as possible without tensing up. And then going back down is when we can start to relax into it and try to get control. But man, it is really hard not to tense up. Yeesh. Hey, Aqua. Hey. It's actually the OS background. Okay. If you're talking about the little like edge stuff, it's actually the OS background. The OS laser background. Or color shifted. So you play OS laser, and you take off the seasonal background and just use the OS laser background. Oh, my IRL background. Oh, this. Oh, thanks. Thanks. It's just this corner of the room, though. You don't want to see the rest of it. Yeah. Here's a little thing about the webcam. I have a really old, like, Logitech C920, and it can't take in red and yellow light properly. So the lights are actually orange, but they come out more closer to the pink side. They're like a soft pink orange like look. But the early webcams don't really do very well with the red light. I appreciate the comments though. It's still very comfy. For sure. It's kind of where I sleep. How are you doing? What are you up to? I see you have the 2023 Twitch recap icon. Badge. I think that's the word they use. Doing good? What's on your mind right now? Oh, this one's intro is so long, but fine. This is our capstone. Just keep the fingers loose, keep them moving. Don't worry about anything other than just keeping the fingers moving. Nothing else matters. Okay. Visiting old games from like 10 years ago. Oh, that's interesting. What other old games have you visited recently? Just chilling? Oh, just waiting for someone. Okay. I see. What other old games have you visited? This game is most certainly older than 10 years. Although O's Laser is about to launch at the end of this year. Technically, it'll become a new game again. Sort of speaking, spiritually. Yeah, 2007 was the official launch of O Stable. Yeah. And then at the 2024 will be the launch of O's Laser, technically. So 2024. It's been a cool 17 years. Battle Block Theater, I am familiar with that. I want to say like 2013-ish. Castle Crashers 2008 or 2009-ish. They might actually be later now that I think about it. December 31st is the launch of Laser. It's technically not true because time zones. So, to make it easier to remember, generally January 1st, 2024 is probably a lot easier to think about. It is kinda easy, sort of, to remember December 31st, 2023, I guess, if you're into remembering more numbers. Battlebox is 2014? Okay, I was off by a year. And then the Castle Crasher date that I am thinking of is when Castle Crasher was on Steam, but that is after Castle Crashers was released. I don't think Castle Crashers was released simultaneously on platforms. The Castle Crasher version that I played was on Steam. Actually, most of the games I'm talking about is when they're listed on Steam. And it's kind of funny because you named two that were related to each other. Do you have a fondness for that particular developer / art style? Because you named two related games. Alright, we're gonna try to step down while that's going. And do you play all those games? You love the developer? I see. 2008, but it's on Steam. It came out in, okay, 2012. Yeah. Wow, I actually confused the, so I was off by a year on when it was launched. But yeah, the 2012, that's the version that I played for sure. Yeah. I got it's interesting that I did the reverse that time, where I was thinking of the actual launch date of Castle Crashers and not the theme listing one. Off by a year, 2007, 2013, really 2008 and 2014 respectively, for Battle Block Theater and Castle Crasher. Do you play either of those games still? And it seems like you know a bit about OS as well. Do you play any of these still? Maybe taking a break and then coming back. All right, now we're stepping down. We're gonna try to get some control. It's where I think it is, pretty much. Okay. I'm just going Behemoth games currently because me and my friend are playing them together because we both have nostalgia. Ah, I see. What is something that leaves an impression on you from Behemoth games? Like, what is it? What is that thing that really resonates with you? Okay. Yeah, taking a break is with something you like, especially nostalgia and stuff, is great. That's where I think it would be if I hit a stamina block there. Something about the art style, I see. Yeah, that'll do it, alright. The art style. It's very distinct. Right. You can definitely know when it's Behemoth games. There are a few other types of indie developers that draw quite a bit of inspiration from Behemoth games. Like, if you're into, like, island crafting stuff, just like sort of pseudo survival, but more of a base building thing, Forager has that aesthetic. The game Forager, I think, is the name. Let me make sure I got this. You know, you have the little like blocky like head brimming with charisma. Yeah, Forager. And since, you know, it's winter sale, it's always nice to throw some nods to some indies. The Team 17 team, like the Team 17 stuff, has a very like yeah, Forager, or like any of the Team 17 stuff tend to have that kind of like simplified, adorable little mini me things. Team 17 games, they also publish stuff, but like the survivalists, the prison one, I forgot what it's called. The architects, the prison architects, like all of their Team 17 main studio stuff tends to hit on that type of aesthetics quite a bit, and they're cooperative too, so it's kind of a thing they do. It's not quite the same, obviously. It's not quite the same. But they have like different genre and whatnot. Worth exploring. Or if you're into the like the 16-bit kind of thing, or 32-bit kind of thing, like if something that looks kind of like Stardew Valley or something, and you're playing with a friend, there's another game called Core Keepers. Core Keepers has that kind of aesthetic, but it's cooperative. So it's quite a lot of indie games that you love. Stardew Valley? Well, there's another game that is kind of like taking a spin on Stardew Valley. It's called Core Keepers. It's currently in early access. However, it's a game designed with friends in mind. So Stardew Valley, the whole multiplayer thing, came after its base foundations, and it's now really wonderful as a cooperative experience. And there's a different spin on it from a different developer, not to be related to Concern 8, the developer of Stardew Valley. And it's doing pretty well, as far as I know. I like to keep track of early access games through their development cycle, and then when they reach 1.0, I tend to like hit those up. You struck me as someone that was pretty safe to say that probably likes Stardew Valley, given the different things you shared. Yes. I highly, to me, I'm waiting patiently, right? I'm waiting patiently on Core Keepers to hit 1.0, so I can pick up like a friend or two to play it together. I really enjoyed Stardew Valley. I was actually one of those peeps that were the early adopters of Stardew Valley. How's the tapping retraining going? It's going pretty alright. It's the 22nd day, and we are using our ring finger for the first time in the last 21-ish days. So before this, I have spent 3 or 4 years using my middle finger and my pointer finger. So it's going pretty alright. Right now, we're in the middle of our endurance section. So this is where we don't have the finger control or the dexterity for it. But the idea is to just keep on tapping and trying to stay relaxed and not tense up. And then once we get a little below 170, so usually the lower we go, you know, dexterity comes back, and then those are the ones that we focus on trying to see if we can grab control of it. So naturally it's going to be around 165 and lower. And then we're trying to keep these sessions to to 2 hours, going up and then back down. Oh, right now we're just still in that area where the whole purpose is to keep on tapping and not tense up. We haven't played any maps and whatnot, but my aim hand isn't doing anything different that it typically does. So that type of de-rusting is gonna be fairly quick. When are you deciding to come back to Oaths? Maybe after Oaths laser launch? I can see it, yeah. I don't know yet if it helps or not. In the way of retapping. So it's a fun learning experience and a different thing to do every once in a while. Generally speaking, I don't typically do things expecting something, so it may or may not help improve tapping. However, that isn't the reason why I did it in the first place. Hey! Okay. Real talk. I really love that you use the word galloping. I think you are the first person that has ever used that. And I do have a galloping issue. But it's only defined when dexterity fails. So I am galloping deliberately on purpose, 170 plus. It's to get the galloping motion, to promote that natural galloping motion, and then slowing it down as you're climbing down. As I'm slowing down, the galloping issue actually subsides. So I'm deliberately galloping in the beginning, because it's a transition, right? If you have no dexterity, you're gonna use your whole hand and you're gonna do double tapping, right? And then when you get more separation between your fingers, it becomes a gallop. And then as you continue to slow down from the galloping situation, you'll have more resolution between the fingers. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. And I love that you use the word galloping, because galloping is the state between only being able to use your entire hand, like all your fingers hitting the keys, and then the middle part of just using all 3 fingers or all 2 fingers, right? doing this, and then they're getting close, but as you're separating them, it goes into a galloping, and then it goes into alternating. But yeah, you really nailed it. You nailed it. That is the word I would use. The galloping issue. It typically, to me, what it really is that one of your fingers is stronger than the other. Like, and stronger, I don't mean by strength, but more flexible. There's more dexterity in one of your fingers. So when you're thinking about alternating, but somehow it leads to a galloping thing, your one of them is either too fast, depending on your relative, right? They're not in sync because the fingers do not have the same tension strength of both. So naturally, I only train in the way that the weakest finger, when the weakest finger is failing per se, I stop there. And what happens is eventually when you apply enough volume to the weaker, the slower finger, and normalize to a slower finger, it allows the slower finger to catch up to the dominant finger. It's kind of like if you want to run, right, and your right, let's say your right leg is better than your left leg, I always stop. I train as much as I can, but I always stop when my left leg is underperforming. So then eventually the right leg, the left leg will catch up to the right leg. And the way I'm stepping up and stepping down is trying to do that with my fingers. And my ring finger is very, very weak. Like, it's far weaker because I haven't ever used it for os. I use my middle finger and my pointer finger before. So when I'm galloping, it's definitely my ring finger that is falling behind. It's not my pointer finger. And that's kind of to describe what I'm doing for the last 22 days. After 31 days, I'm just gonna rest. Like, it's gonna be a week away from os. You know, you need your rest periods to deload and all that stuff. But yeah, you nailed it. I just love the idea. I just love that you use the word galloping. I don't think in so long since I played os, I don't think anyone has described to me, right? Because I don't encounter a lot of people a lot of times, but using that phrasing. It's fun times. came from Mania, and the stream equivalent is galloping, or at least that's how you click. So it just has. Oh, that's so interesting. That's I haven't thought about that. You are the first Mania to O standard transition in that way. So for me, it's relearning a thing a different way. Absolutely, or rather, altering the way I think. Yes, yes. And I play OS, or I record OS, I guess, and stuff, is because I'm always doing something a different way. I like playing games for the sake of learning something in alternative way. So things like puzzle games is on the, you know, on the docket all the time. Deck builders, things that deal with like methodical game design and stuff that is out of the box. So typically I play a lot of indie in general. And it's to farm for different ways of playing, even when it's different ways of a familiar thing. I tell people, well, I generally express the idea that I am a jack of all trades when it comes to skill building. However, the skill that I master most of the time is is the learning process. So I know a lot about the learning process. I can probably be pretty I mean, I used to work in teaching and education most of the time for sciences. Um, Generally speaking, that just translates to everything else now, where typically I can't demonstrate the skill well unless I'm always learning myself. So in order to demonstrate what I enjoy doing, I have to keep doing new things, because the act of doing those new things is how I demonstrate what skill I'm offering. So what is my brand, right? The whole like, what is the consistency of all these recording things? It's to capture the learning process, not to capture the mastery of it. So most of the time, it's not about what happens at the end or what are the expectations in the beginning, is the whole, all the things in between, right? And it's really hard to illustrate, and it's not very popular, right? Because you have to one has to live through the process. It's hard to summarize. You can't just say, like, I'm basically I don't like the hustle the internet has, right? And it's great for time efficiency. It's very time efficient. There's a lot of great things about the hustle of internet content. Basically, they give you a hot take, give you 10 things, you do these things, and you become successful. What that looks like, well, it's gone. It's not there. The person who's making the top 10 things they would do if they had to do it all over again is gone. Like the 10 years they spent refining that to get the advice, you can't witness that. And it's very difficult. It's super time consuming. But I do it because I personally like to do it. And then if occasionally someone just happens to have the same problems per se, like in the beginning of all my like projects, when I start a game, I summarize a lot of the things, the mindsets and stuff. So if just by coincidence one or two people say, "Oh yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking," then it makes it clear that it's worth their time to go through the whole thing. If it's not, then they stop there, which is how I format most of my things. So day ones of everything, day ones of a game, day one of this, 31 days, I've tried to describe as much as I can about what my past experience are, what my motivations, mindsets are, and then if that is interesting, then it might uh, inspire some learning process involved. Other than that, anytime in between, I'm usually using it for whatever I'm doing is a leaping point to discuss how other people feel. Like, What's on your mind? How do you learn things? Where are you coming from? And then I take that information, typically try to add a little. Like, oh yeah, you like these 3 or 4 or 5 games. You know what? It's pretty obvious that you have a pattern in your game preferences. What do I know that I could add to it and suggest something? And then it leads to that person learning maybe perhaps something about themselves and finding new things to get them to learn and try new things out. That's kind of the idea. And it does work in my favor that every once in a while someone comes by and is willing to share, because the thing I'm doing, it's not scalable. There's still working on how to make learning fun, but not internet style. So one of the hot takes I will throw out typically is that the internet has caused the, like, in not intentionally, but made it very, very easy to always see and do what you want to do. It makes it super easy to do that, and you can become really, really good at what you want to see and what you want to do. Unfortunately, that means the trade-off is you don't usually spend most of your time learning anymore. So when you go to learn new things or try new things, it becomes more and more stressful and exhausting. And the longer you spend revisiting and constantly doing things you're used to, you never have to learn at a level that was like you did before. And the barrier you become more complacent in that, which means that you're becoming more efficient, even better at the thing you already learned. And that's what the internet does super, super well. For better or for worse, trade-offs or not, inherently, most people who spend their time on the internet is challenged less and less to learn new things. And my goal, at least personally, what I feel like I want to do is always present something in a way that someone has something to say about it. So you came in on my OS session, and I can tell you the last 8 discussions ran for maybe an hour or 2 hours, dealt with how they feel one should train in OS. And that's exactly the point. So the idea is to always be able to share and discuss about the different approaches to even things that people are used to. However, for OS, I'm typically doing something that most people aren't doing, because my goal is to do something that is something most people aren't doing. So if it's weird, if it looks weird that I'm just doing this, it's really intentional. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you that this is how you should train. No, it is actually not what most people do. It's just out of curiosity. Oh, thanks. That's very, very kind words. I feel you're very complimentary. Like, you have a you throw out compliments a lot, which is nice. I feel that's I'm not the greatest at accepting compliments, so just bear with me. But I really appreciate the kind words. It's just fun doing different things. It's nice. Every once in a while. Obviously, if you're like a person who is very, very habit forming and you're still wanting to, like, you know, anxiousness and fear and anxiety can be a very barrier to what I suggest, that's perfectly understandable. Like when I talk to people, they're like, "Oh yeah, that's an interesting idea," and and you get the impression that it's like they're probably just gonna go about their business the way they typically do. That's perfectly fine too. It's respect, you know. It's the idea that I'm presenting something new, and maybe one day they're gonna be like, "Hey, might as well give it a try," since they're spinning the wheel and maybe the wheel isn't spinning sustainably. However, usually I don't take, there's no element of pride in convincing anyone to do something. That's usually something that stops someone from learning in the first place. So kind of like if you're not a fan of school, and you have an older instructor who is forcing you to do something, that's usually countered by a stronger resistance. So often, just mere suggestion is sufficient, right? And over time, if you leave a strong enough impression, perhaps the idea will come back up sometime. And that's usually because I'm often concerned about younger people adapting to their lifestyles that aren't quite sustainable. Like for OS, just a slight discussion about the OS community. The vast majority of OS community are very young, impressionable kids, like 18 and younger a lot of times. And they go through this cycle where eventually the first thing they love, usually the one that they're committed to is something like OS, will reach a peak, right? They will begin to hit their first encounter of what they feel like is stagnation. But really, it's something that occurs with a mastery of a skill. And oftentimes, it enters a cycle of treading the same thing or iterating on something that isn't substantially different. And what happens is it creates fatigue or mental fatigue. And often you hear projection of this negative mental fatigue. Like, oh, well, you know, the same thing happened. Like, I obviously choked X, Y, and Z. And then it just keeps reinforcing the negativity until it becomes a love-hate relationship with mastery of a skill. And that is actually a very good life experience that is somehow contextualized only to a video game, right? When you try other skills and begin to master those, you'll probably hit the same type of event. And needing to create coping mechanisms and ways to deal with that will greatly enhance someone's love for something while not necessarily doing the thing very often. So being able to encourage someone to happily step away and take a break from something and then coming back with renewed vigor and then acquiring skills and learning something in the process, they can bring those to the things they love. So I love the idea, you shared a couple key words, right? You're taking a break from OS. You're doing something that going down nostalgia, right? Nostalgia, spending some time away. And then when you come back, it's going to be sustainable. It's a very healthy thing. And on top of that, you can use the opportunity. You may choose to use the opportunity to learn something new in the process. And one never knows until you learn that process how it's gonna enhance something you return to. So generally, that's a really common dialogue for OS. Like OS community where like, oh yeah, you know, just couldn't get that PP. I'm just changing from OS. Like, if I can't be the best at this one skill, I might as well drop it now. No point in coming back. That kind of extreme thing happens quite a lot when your experience is very limited. Like, because it's gonna come up again and again and again. It's one of the restrictions of life. It's one of the life skills that are necessary to understand. And develop ways, learn ways in which you can cope and take advantage of that. And for me, my cutoff is 80%. It's kind of like a classic economic rule, but I apply it to my psychology, right? How good do I have to be to say I'm good enough and then continue learning new things? That's kind of the idea. And all the learning makes it so that it reaches my ultimate goal. My general ultimate goal is to get people to learn and find sustainable ways for them to constantly be happy, right? And in order to do that, I have to learn as much as I can. So I'm taking advantage of my preference for learning to learn 80 percentile of a lot of things. And then when I encounter that person, it will appear as though I have something to say about anything they share about. Because I would have at least enough information for me to connect some dots or some stories or something to speak about. And being well spoken tends to be associated with how the depth of your knowledge and experience. So if you're saying good day, even talk about the weather, or just say hi and then walk away kind of thing, I have something to say about all of those things. So one or two phrases is enough to go on a tangent for like 2 hours. I hope Oats is treating you well too. How's your mania stuff? You say you're coming from mania. So when you're returning to O's, you're talking about returning to mania? It's lovely. Well, that's wonderful. It's gonna be real. You don't hear oftentimes when people say they're taking a break from O's, it's often like an inward negative projection. It's like, you know what? O's just doesn't feel the same anymore. I'm just not getting progress anymore, and that's why I'm taking a break. If you know what I mean. I chuckle because the irony here is when they walk away for a while and then find that urge naturally to come back, the first comment they're gonna say, at least to me upon returning, if they keep me in mind, they're gonna say, wow, suddenly I'm just better than I was before after the break. Like, yes, it's very likely, because oftentimes your physical state is the dominant driver for getting better. However, when you get to mastery, your mental state is going to become a greater and greater burden. And at some point when you step away, that's when your mental burden exceeds your physical limits. And what happens is when you take a break, that mental burden is relaxed again, which allows for a refocus on the physical burdens, which typically still allows you to progress in some way most of the time, but smaller. So alleviating the mental burden when it eventually becomes too great is what's actually improving a lot of the mindset for the return. I started on Mania for a year or so, and I got to the point where there was no rank maps at my skill level. Oh, so I went to Standard and started learning. That's awesome. Exactly. And I have into Ascent. Exactly. That's so wonderful. You are illustrating. I'm not sure if you're someone who analytically came to that conclusion, or you intuitively do this stuff, but I imagine that that's probably why you're very likely to be a lot happier, having either intuited this or, you know, learned psychology and whatnot. But that is the natural cycle that I hope most adults, like older people, when they become older, that's the cycle they kind of learn to use as a way to keep on
being happy and improving, self-improvement. That is like the goated response, right? That's the natural response that you want to hear someone in their mid-20s and older to have. Early on as a kid, that's kind of acceptable, right? When kids are limited in experience, they don't necessarily think, I should learn something else. They typically have so much room for improvement that it goes on until maybe their late teens, right? 18, 19. But once you leave the nest, you encounter your first time where you have to learn even more skills. And those skills require that balance of being able to learn new things and keeping hold of old things and then integrating both of them. So, like for you, I imagine that you don't see your mania experience as a waste and not connected with your standard experience. The way you learn mania, become exposed to OS, and all the things you use to learn mania as a mental transferable things you can, like skills you can use if you want to use them, if you can take advantage of them. A lot of times, younger people, the younger you get, what they see is that their skills are compartmentalized. So when you learn one skill and you go to learn another skill, they don't transfer. So it's not that they don't transfer per se, it's the things they value are not transferable. And so they are right in a sense of their mindset. Like, I play standard, mania just plays differently. So there's no skill transfer between that. That's certainly pragmatically true. But there are other things that the younger peeps don't take advantage of that do transfer. How to train, how to learn, right? Those things are infinite. So if you learn how you got good at mania, that stuff is forever. And that's what I'm focused on. The idea that whatever you do, you're always self-improving. It's not the end result of the skill, but what you did to acquire that skill that's infinite. When you become older, that's your biggest advantage against your younger self. You have experience to make all of it work, and faster. There's a deep cut in here that I talk about between like the learning process difference between adults and kids. But generally speaking, the hot take here is kids learn based on the end result, what the skill pragmatically entails. So like, there's no aim component in mania, so therefore OS standard's aim component doesn't transfer to mania. That's true. But there are so many things that you did learning standard that can be used for mania. They aren't literally involved in the skill you're focused on. I did it because I just didn't get the same enjoyment as I did in mania. There was nothing to strive for apart from rank, which is only achievable with learning 7Ps. Ah, I see. Fair enough. Yeah. That sounds really, really strenuous, both mentally and physically. I probably wouldn't, if I were being realistic with myself, my cutoff is probably far before that. I'm gonna play Mania soon, by the way. Like, this is a fun experiment and whatnot, but because of how OS Laser has a lot of ways to play that are very available, right? I'm probably gonna start playing Mania. For not the same reasons as you had originally, just because it's different. I played O Standard enough to know enough for what I need, and then now I'm gonna move and try to acquire more experience elsewhere. Although I do have to say I'm probably gonna use some of these fun mods for like a month somewhere, like play a month's worth of, I don't know, wind up and wind down or something, because all this stuff is great. It's different ways to play those. One last hot take is that in life, you get to choose a few skills that you're willing to master. And I wish for most people, I hope for most people, the 2 or 3 skills that they choose to master are skills that make their life sustainably happy. On top of that, that person has the ability to support the 2 or 3 specialized skills with an incredible large foundation of basic skills, basic life skills. So for example, skills that you can't go without are things like your diet, your physical and mental health, your sleep hygiene. I like to believe that while they discover through childhood and then adulthood, young adulthood and into adults, the 2 or 3 specialized skills they have are bolstered and supported by all their basic needs of basic skills. So another basic skill that must be sufficient is communication. I cannot resonate with this problem even from a young age, like at the current age, like around my 20s, is that my skills that I choose to specialize in happens to be those basic skills. So a basic skill is learning. A secondary basic skill is communication. Third skill is mental health and physical health. Those are my specialized skills. Like I love those parts of it. So coincidentally, my specialized skills tend to help me with the skills that I need. That's not true for a lot of people on the internet. They typically choose a skill that is incredibly specialized but doesn't meet their needs for sustainable lifestyles. One would be how to form habits and and curb addiction. Addiction is just a habit that's not sustainable, right? So like if you're addicted to something, it chips away at your physical and mental health progressively. It's a habit that chips away. And then when you have a habit that's positive, most people just call it a habit, right? Or a lot of times it's called a skill. So a habit that's positive is often referred to as a skill, and a habit that is detrimental is often referred to as an addiction. And being able to navigate that is also a basic skill, right? Being a basic skill. So hopefully the little youngins and the sprouts eventually acquire this lesson. For me, by the way, I'm 36 plus, so I'm probably one of a few 35 plus people who habitually play OS, right? I came from a time when the internet isn't refined in a way that eliminates this natural learning process that most people go through. So I'm part of the United States millennial generation, where there was a transition period, and no matter what, I had to grow up with specific learning experiences. This is completely circumvented now. Like anyone who's maybe younger than 18 right now could go through the beginning of their childhood development without needing that learning process to be developed. So to me, that's the most interesting thing. It's the thing that I want to focus on, which is to alleviate or attempt to encourage young adults now, those who are becoming in their 20s and going into their 30s, to acquire naturally or maybe intellectually how to do that now. Because man, OS is one of those communities. There are a lot of youth that right now might have a healthy relationship with improving and working on OS skills. However, it's not sustainable. Like for other things, like OS can sort of teach you how to get some sleep or start a new diet. Not like for weight loss or anything, just improving your diet and stuff. Eventually, it could, but rarely will it do that. Another basic skill OS doesn't really reinforce is communication. It definitely removes self-awareness. So basic life skill is self-evaluation. Well, let's look at the PP system. A game like OS has a clear ranking system, right? It tells you, it prescribes to you what metrics are important as you're playing a video game. Well, a lot of times that also means it removes the need to figure out what is important to you and what is useful to you. So when you're so used to playing in an environment that tells you what is important, you practice less and less figuring out new things that could be important to you. So telling someone that if you eat better and sleep better each day for yourself, I don't know what those answers are. Like, I don't know what better looks like for that person. However, striving for that could make you a better OS player. The rating system cannot rate that. It cannot make you feel that that's important. So when you get really used to that, you have a whole generation of kids who realize that they're getting worse and worse mentally and physically while still improving in OS. But once that goes away, there's no other priorities. So what happens when you get to that state is that you feel like it's not worth it anymore. It doesn't feel the same. The enjoyment is gone. And then you ask yourself, well, how do I fix that? I can't, because the system has already reinforced these are the things that matter to me. And it's not that the people lack intelligence or competence to know there are other things. The human condition, you associated your worth with a system that doesn't evaluate anything else, right? Outside of what they're supposed to. So it still feels horrible, and I wouldn't go out of my way to tell them that it feels horrible. It's different. So step away, buy your favorite food or something, enjoy it for a week, and come back. What it teaches is that there are other things that you can find out for yourself that's important to you. So for me, just to illustrate my point, the only thing I use in the OS right now is the record keeping of when I did something, how many times I did it, and what the score is. That's it. Like, I don't even, like, it has nothing to do with the PP system. Like, the score, you can argue, well, the higher the score, the more PP, but I'm not playing maps that are worth PP. So The idea is I can find value without a system telling me what the value is. I can still choose to play with the system. Like, oh yeah, I want to gain rank, so I'll do that. What's different here is that when you have a kid who is only exposed to a specific ranking system, that becomes their world. It's like a kid who fell in love with a hobby, and that hobby is the only thing they were exposed to. So when that hobby stops putting out based on whatever their standards are, they're at a loss. When that no longer feels enough, they have nothing to fall back on. There's no alternatives. And they didn't practice any of the learning process to acquire new things that mean something to them. And they didn't develop self-awareness of what is valuable to them if they spend most of their time having a system tell them what is valuable. So when you try to convince someone, and this is my OS hot take, when you try to convince someone that PP doesn't matter, that's when you're being insensitive, because it probably does matter to someone who brings it up. And it might, and the really counterintuitive thing here is, it probably matters so much, and that is the problem. It's not about whether it matters or not. To me, most of the time when people talk about the ranking system, it probably matters. Not only does it matter, it matters too much. And that is preventing that person from seeing anything else that also could matter. And I see that a lot. In fact, that's the 90, I would say if you hop into any like really high performing OS content creator, the vast majority of the comments deal with how to get your self-worth on performing really well. And you know what? That's fantastic. It's admirable, like always striving for more performance. There's gonna be a time when you're gonna have to tell yourself, in my opinion, it's healthy to tell yourself that you did a lot. Now there are so many other things that could also bring joy to your life. When something stops putting out and it feels like it's your entire life, you have to ask yourself, look around. There are so many people who have happy lives and don't even know what OS is. So get on that, kind of thing. That sounded a little bit like tough love, but it would be more like I would suggest things. Hey, have you played Mania? Maybe you just need a little break from OS. Try Mania. It's still OS tangent. It's adjacent to it. You like video games? You told me you like video games, but all you have been talking about is OS. So I have a few examples of video games that are video games but not OS. How about starting there? That kind of thing, right? Just making some chat, It's probably gonna end up in a video, and I hope you're okay with that. You sound like someone that is very mature, like mentally mature, and I'm not going to assume what your age is or not. It's just I feel it's refreshing when I hear someone who's playing OS who have like experience with OS, but also exploring other things. That is not the common thing on Twitch, right? Because Twitch tends to be... Twitch is on the internet, and what the internet does is when you see people and meet strangers, they're looking for something. And when they're looking for something and they enter like a room or something and it's not what they're looking for, often that's where it just stops. Like it stops there. So my goal a lot of times is to ask what they're looking for and then maybe add something that they weren't looking for, and it leaves an impression, and that's kind of the goal. Like, I don't want to leave someone with everything they know. I don't think that's part of the learning process. If you're a learner like me and you stay long enough, you're probably going to take something away. Hopefully, like, my goal is that you take something away that isn't everything you expected before. However, content creation is most popular when it is that, which I don't do, right? When you click on a video, you're getting what you're looking for. If you don't get what you're looking for, then you hit that dislike button and then pretend like it doesn't exist anymore. That's usually the mainstream mentality of what the internet has reinforced. And Twitch is a really, really weird extreme of that, because now we're talking about live content, and even live content is reacting that way. Like, here's a great example from my personal experience. When I get stuck on these types of digression and I basically just abandon what I'm doing here, that's the whole purpose of me doing this in the first place, to like get distracted and talk about these things. But you have a kid pop in and say like, dude, are you gonna play OS or not? It's like, well, I am. The reason why I'm having this discussion and talking about these things and quality of life is because OS inspires that. Why do I play OS? Literally, well, like figuratively, and then I guess in the streaming, literally to have these discussions. I'm not telling you how to become a good OS player, like by the PP system. I'm showing you what I do to have a positive relationship with OS, with or without a PP system. My goal is, like, I hope that when you come in and tell me you're having a bad day, I don't want to necessarily hear that it's because you didn't get enough PP. And wow, that actually came out pretty lewd, huh? And that's usually the conversation most of the time. So when someone comes in, they say, oh yeah, you know, I'm just chilling, having a bad day. I'm like, why is your day so bad? Like, can you tell me a little bit about it? And then the person would say something like, well, you know, I got 300 PP yesterday and I only managed to get 80 PP today. It's like, why does that make you feel bad? It sounds like you've gotten PP both days. And the person will say, well, it's not as much. Like, okay, why is that? What does it make, like, is it realistic? Like, what is your thought process behind why it just suddenly becomes a bad thing when the number is smaller? Like, it sounds like you played OS, you got better at OS, you know, trying to reframe it in a way. And then you have people who like, oh yeah, you know, I choked, wasted all my time not getting any PP for the day. And I would ask them, well, did you enjoy playing OS? Right, it sounds like you literally played OS. And they would say like, well, you know, there's no point in playing OS if I can't get PP, or it's inferred a lot of times by their comment. And my thought is, so what you're telling me is the act of playing OS might not actually be providing enough enjoyment. So do you enjoy playing OS anymore? And the idea is, I like to hope that the person says like something, or rethink and reflect on, oh yeah, you know what, you're right. Like they can describe back in the day that they used to love playing and stuff. It wasn't necessarily about progress based on the PP system. It was about putting in time and enjoying that. And then that leads into a discussion about complacency and being heavily reliant on feedback that is prescribed to them. The PP system is one way to tell you if you're improving. It's just one way. Like, or multiple ways, but the number that people are focused on is the overall telltale sign if you're progressing. There are so many ways you can progress that the PP system doesn't tell you. And losing sight of that is disheartening. The last thing I wish for someone to have to consider is that, well, you're not getting more PP, and it's going to get harder and harder. That's not my jam to state the obvious, like the reality. You're not trying to reinforce the idea that, oh yeah, well, that's going to naturally happen. A lot of people would use that though, because they're experienced OS players playing for PP, talking to another player who is also playing for PP. For me, I would ask, what else do you enjoy about OS? Is there anything else that you remember or still believe is enjoyable about OS? Focus on that. Just for a little bit. Distract yourself from PP and concentrate on a different thing that you might still be able to know that you enjoy about it. Do something else. What else do you enjoy? And well, then, you know, it can get really deep. The rabbit hole can get so deep that the person's like, yo, you know what? I freaking hate video games. Like, video games, they're all about like competitive and stuff. It's like, okay, let's go further back. Let's go further out. Do you do anything that's non-competitive? Like, what brings you joy that's non-competitive? And then it would be, we would eventually hit on something like, well, I do like chilling and doom scrolling on TikTok or something. Like, that sounds like something to do. Like, you gotta balance it out, man. Like, if that's bringing you joy without needing to be competitive and there's no PP ranking associated with doom scrolling and TikTok, take a break. Do some doom scrolling with TikTok. It's reliable to give you some, you know, nice feelings at least. That's a more effective coping strategy than telling yourself, oh, I just gotta work harder and drive myself even further into the ground, and that's how I'm gonna cope. Because that's not a sustainable coping mechanism either. What it does is it only generally reinforces and remind you of what you're coping for. So one of the most ineffective coping strategies, in my opinion, that is really pervasive in OS or like competitive games in general, is that they use negative reinforcement to create motivation to cope by doing the thing that is creating more negative motivation. So eventually that person is going to break. And that is one of the banes of professional anything. When you become a professional anything, a job, a career, the most successful people who stay in their careers for the longest and sustainable found a balance between that. Like, if you feel like you suck, like if you suck at something in OS, the last thing you want to cope with is reminding yourself constantly how much you suck, right? So a lot of times it's counterintuitive because most people would think like, oh yeah, I suck, I just need to practice more. It works until it doesn't. When you practice more and you like run through and use your endurance, it keeps going up. Once you hit a level that is a natural blockade, right, a plateau that starts occurring, your mental state is going to affect you way more than that natural, like, no pain, no gain, like, just keep grunting. It will be so great that I like to hope that person has a self-awareness, because it will self-destruct. Like, it'll cause career changes that might not be the most, it'll create emotionally compromised decision making. Like, this is a great stereotype for OS community. It's like, oh yeah, you know what? This game sucks. Like, I'm done with this game. I spent 5 years in this game and I couldn't get as good as I want it in my mind, I'm just quitting cold turkey. 3 months later, they can't help but think about oaths. And then they come back and they get reminded all over again. And then go through that vicious cycle again. Only the second time, it's going to be normalized. Here's the real deep cut. When you come back and then do it again, it will feel normal. Like it'll get normaler. And that's not a word, but it will normalize that feeling. A year or two down the road, you quit that same thing and then you come back. Quit that same thing and you come back. What happens then is you will normalize underperformance. You will normalize suffering and increase tolerance to this thing. So what does that look like if it's not 5 years? Actually, this type of cycle happens within the year. So you'll have a kid who spends 3 months on a video game. It gets to a point where it doesn't put out anymore. So they just accept that, quit, and then found nostalgia and fun, like the emotional human condition to come back and say, oh yeah, this feels like nostalgia, and then it's gone, and now you have that negative reinforcement again. So you continue to do that, and it bleeds into everything that person does. And what does that look like? Oh, you know what? I'm only gonna, I'm never gonna commit to anything because I know that every time I commit to something, it turns out bad in the long run. So then that person just never know how to form commitments anymore. It goes really, like, it cuts really deep. And you can discern a lot of this from the way people describe something that they used to do for a very long time and how they respond to it. If someone is saying like, oh yeah, it didn't work out the way I liked. Like, in the end, I didn't get as good as I wanted. Like, yeah, now I can't use that skill for anything. Like, I didn't really learn much for my new skill. That tells you the person I'm describing. And that's a very, very, it disheartens me to say this, but I would say greater than 50% of people who spend most of their time on the internet exhibit that behavioral pattern. For me, nothing I do is worthless. I guarantee right now, this very distraction is definitely taking me away from completing this task I'm doing, but that has very little bearing on how rewarding it is. Like, everything will be rewarding because I understand how to take advantage and extract meaning from the things I do. I don't go in thinking that it can only be rewarding when I achieve a goal. I go in thinking no matter what, I'm doing something. And that is in itself its reward. When you get older, the thing I'm describing is almost necessary. When you're younger, that might not be necessary because everything seems like new experiences. When you're younger, whatever you're looking at is probably new. When you get older, you keep accumulating more and more experiences. Then if you think like a younger self where you're like comparing, you're always comparing and contrasting like, oh yeah, I used to be this great. And then you started new things like, oh, but I wasn't as great, relatively speaking, as I was before. When you get older and older, there's always going to be something that'll be enough to shoot you down. And what you start thinking about is how they're different and they add together, not subtract from each other. You're not substituting skills. You're acquiring and collecting skills. So why am I doing this? I'm collecting the learning experience involved in doing this, not trying to improve on something that I could improve doing something I already know how to do. So a lot of times when you have a OS player, like the PP system's like, well, how do I get more PP? Well, speed is the way. Speed is very heavily weighted. It's like, oh, now I've capped out speed. What's the next thing to get more PP? Well, I could use HR, and then HD, and then I could use HDHR, and then we can throw in DTHR to get more PP. What that did is that almost all the solutions to this person's problem is focused on how much value this person has with the PP system. I'm so outside of this system that I could sit here and listen to this song rotate for the 100th time and be doing something worthwhile. And that's kind of why I don't ever edit any of my videos either. Because those moments are important. It's not very popular, it's not very pragmatic, because it takes too long. But the idea is, the essence of having a healthy life is to, in my opinion, to stop editing your life. You get to the point where you are focused so much. It's a pun, sorry, I had to make the pun. You get so caught up in editing your life that you've cut out the vast majority of your life. Like that walk that you had to do to get to a grocery store, cut it out. It's not important because you decided it's not important. You can't use that walk time to do something, right? Like you're sitting here like, oh yeah, this guy is spending so long to get to the point. Like what? That's such a waste of time. Why don't you just get to the point? It's like, well, the whole intent is what is making you anxious about getting to the point. Like you can add something in it. There's always opportunity to do something. You don't have to always feel like you need a very specific thing. And the euphemism I would use here is living in the present, right? When you're thinking about watching a YouTube video and you see that it's 15 minutes long and all you can think about is, I probably can summarize the video in 1 minute. You have edited out 14 minutes that's already there, and you only placed value on a very specific thing, and you're thinking about the future and the past. You're not living in the present, because the past is telling you you only need 1 minute to understand the 15-minute video. The future is telling you it's a waste of time if you can understand the video in 1 minute instead of listening to all 15 minutes and see what you can learn from it. So you cut out the learning process. You literally edited the learning process out of it. Because you don't want to learn anything, you just want to be told what works. And it's not vicious. I don't think it's vicious. It's just the internet has overrepresented this, right? It's the hustle. It's the internet hustle. Don't spend 15 minutes showing how it's done. Like, don't spend 15 minutes showing the top 3 things of how it's done. Just tell me what the end result is. And that sells. It sells a lot of views, it does a lot of things, and then when a person goes and do them, it doesn't turn out the way the influencer said, because, well, the influencer didn't tell you how it was done, they told you what to do. Like, hey, how do you get better at O's? Just play, forehead. Like, okay. How do you demonstrate that? You don't. Like, how can anyone demonstrate that in like the 1 or 2 minutes you're talking to each other for advice? Right? Advice is advice. Demonstration is it's a whole different ball game. And then people are upset. What happens when it doesn't work out? Well, how do you cope with it? You don't, because you didn't learn to cope with it in the first place. So like we gotta switch. Let's switch this song. Like someone would say, oh yeah, I followed all the rules. I tried all the things that everyone else is doing and it didn't work for me. What do I do now? Well, first of all, it really, really sucks that it didn't work out. I wish life was so easy. I wish life was so easy that when you follow other people, it always works out. I think that's perfect. And it does work for some people. Yeah, I know that the song was really, really annoying. Yeah, I understand. If I had an ideal world, I would wish that's what happens with kids. Like, they just look on YouTube, get enough things, and those things, when they do them, it's good enough. Like, it works, and then they live the rest of their life sustainable. The odds of that happening is so small. And we don't know yet, for sure. Like, for me, I believe the odds are very small. Because human society and dynamics change within a lifetime. It changes at least 3 to 4 times within a lifetime. We don't know that for sure yet because the internet is not old enough to have a full generation of people to go from beginning to end. And you're already seeing it. You're already seeing it when it's not even the full lifetime. Those who grew up on the internet, right, within the first 20 years, so anyone who's younger than 20 has already gone through 1 or 2 crises from the way the internet is presenting information. Like around 13, right, there's a shift, a paradigm shift in what type of information. And then at 18, when they transition into adulthood, you're already seeing the beginnings of things don't work out. They have to adjust. It would be great if that was not the case, where like, oh yeah, just Google it, and then they become a successful human being. Like somehow down the line, they just avert all the crises. All the answers are on the internet, right? If you evaluate the overall emotional states, or at least in my opinion, my limited experience and sample size, generally the sentiments are negative. It's not sustainable. You're having a global increase in mental exhaustion that, to me, I agree with both, like all the different takes where it's unprecedented. It's an increase that is unique to the introduction of the internet. It's not just something that was always there, as in the increase in depression, the increase in helplessness, the decrease in like overall learning capacity and critical thinking, which is a personal favorite of mine, by the way. That's why I went to graduate school to get a PhD. That's my jam, critical thinking and problem solving. So it's a coincidence. It's still a coincidence that it coincided with the internet. However, there's so many converging evidence to suggest that whatever the internet is doing right now is overall creating a diminished satisfaction in an entire generation of kids. And it's all rooted in even video games. Like, and now I start thinking, like, if you're designing a video game, how can you get... It's good for business too if you know this stuff. Like, this is why I love playing video games and talk about the psychology behind game design, is because if you can get your community to sustainably learn life skills while playing your video game, as a developer and a potential publisher, it only means the people who play your game will continue to play your game healthily and great. And what does that do? It gives you more social media positivity. It gives you more social media exposure. Your community is inclusive, right? Like, it's great for the health of the game. So it's just happening now where lots of older generation people are thinking, all right, so how do we do this? Because clearly whatever is happening with the internet generation now is not sustainable. Like, it's getting really, it's spiraling out of control. In my opinion, it's starting to spiral out of control. Like, it's tough for me not going to a Twitch stream or a YouTube comment section and hear something that is not the same anymore. Like, it's obviously not the same as offline interactions and stuff, but man, there's just such a breakdown in communication and lack of decorum or any form of, like, the internet is the wild, wild west, right? The closest, like, regulation you have is probably YouTube. And even then, the people who are angry really are kind of too young to actually see why those regulations and cultural norms were in place before time of the internet. Like, there's a place for decorum and appropriateness and respectfulness, and there's a place to be able to introduce your opinion respectfully, right? And there's none of that on the internet. There's no standardization for that. The closest thing you have right now is what YouTube is trying to do. Like, even when Twitch continues to try to, like, do a little of that, then you have another service that's just unhinged, right? So if the internet is to be a place for humanity's future, there's got to be some balance. Because if it's completely unhinged, well, what happens when things are unhinged? They're not sustainable. There's no way to cope. There's no standards that bring someone back. So, for example, here's a really scary example. Cyberbullying. It's completely unhinged. Cyberbullying is just... And the response is zero tolerance. Well, what does that look like in real life? It's not necessarily zero tolerance. It's a compromise. You try to resolve understanding where that bullying comes from, where the two parties involved, and you have a bunch of other systems involved that kind of tries to get the best of both. Like, try to elevate both the involved parties to resolve something. Right now, the internet's way of coping and communicating and developing stuff, especially video games. Video games is a big component because I would say it's getting to the point where video games might be contending for an entire generation's major reason to be online. So, like, if you take 18 and younger, I would say over 50% of their time online might be dedicated to video games. So in my opinion, it's great for business, it's great for publication, if the game designers understand that, yeah, you know what, you're kind of the influencers now too. And it's great if there was a way that you can healthily encourage kids. It's an untapped resource too. You can be able to get people to think in a way that makes them really happy. And when they're really happy, they are only going to love your game even more and stay with your game even more. That's not what's happening to live service games, right? A great example is live service games. I play 2 live service games, and I'm constantly talking about what is a constructive way to make a healthier relationship with video games. Because video games are no longer, say, a hobby. It's becoming more and more of a lifestyle. And whether game designers and end users and consumers want to recognize this or not, that is the reality. It's what's changing. If it's consuming more and more of your life, then it has more and more responsibilities. So oftentimes exploring this helps someone have a more healthier relationship. So it's not the thing, I'm not saying the thing where, oh, I was born before video games. You know what would be healthy for you? Go outside and touch grass. That is like really ignorant and really unempathetic. That's a very apathetic way of trying to maybe help, right? It's with the kindest intentions. Like it may be the solution for a lot of kids, but it's also unfilling and it doesn't explain anything. Like, go out and touch grass. You'll get healthier. That explains nothing. That's legitimately what the hustle culture of the internet does. So if you're like a parent or something and you say it like that as a matter of fact, what happens? Well, they just go on YouTube and find evidence of the contrary with no understanding of the learning process. Like, a lot of times to get learning process to work, you sit down and you have to demonstrate it or explain it. And OS is a great example. The whole just play more forehead kind of thing. That shows you how much of the learning process you have. Like when you go up to this 4 digits and you're like a 5 digit and they ask you, so what do you do? How do I get to that point? Like I have this stuff and this stuff. It's like, well, and then they would explain it in a, I don't know, like I did this and this. I don't know if that means anything. I did this and this. And it comes off as, oh, okay, that. It's like, well, what does that actually look like? What does it actually mean? Well, you can't possibly know as a human being, because when you're offering advice, it's after the fact. Like, I can't tell you, for example, how it felt when I was, like, truly felt when I navigated feeling overexhausted, like burning out on a career. I can tell you I changed and pivoted to get healthier. Those are the end results. But at the time, there was no way I could tell you with accuracy, unless you're a very special 0.001% of human beings who actually remember eidetic experiences and all the emotions attached to it. Generally speaking, most humans, 99.9% of humans, have problems remembering the process. What's great about the internet? What's great about the content creation? The camera doesn't lie. Like, what I mean is, you don't have to remember the learning process. You can review it. So you don't have to be public about it. And what did that look like before the internet and computers? A journal, your food diary, your photographs, your stories you share with your family, your best friend's experience recollection with you, nostalgia. Those things are forms of record keeping. And the most popular form now is just to record what you do, because technology has made that very, very convenient. And that is why I stream and record and post YouTube videos. It's generally for me to illustrate my learning process, usually for myself. So like most of the time I'm usually talking to myself. I'm talking to myself, and that's what I feel a lot of people should be welcome in doing. Like, I'm not talking to myself because necessarily that other people should like it. It's something should be normal to someone who is working on themselves. Like, who do you talk to feel better if you don't want to depend on someone? Yourself. So my idea is that I do this for myself and demonstrate what it sounds like when you're telling yourself how to learn things. Like, oh yeah, you know what? Today's not a good day. I didn't sleep really well yesterday. Like, if you watch yesterday's video, I told myself, like, you know, I stayed up a little too late. So I got to make sure that I don't push myself too hard today. I was a little exhausted. And then today, I started with reviewing and saying, well, I'm a bit more rested, so I should push myself a little bit harder. These things it doesn't have to stay in the brain. It can be, or organically communicated with yourself. Sorry to shut you down, but my friend is wanting to play. Dude, go for it. Go for it. Thank you for it. A lot has resonated with you. I hope you have a wonderful day. If we don't ever see, like, all I can say for this is, I know you're having a great time, right? Just do that. Come back with a story of how you're having a great time. All good. Thanks for giving me material to talk about. Yeah, I appreciate the kind words. Good luck. Enjoy. All right. So now that we properly digressed it, we're going to try to see how loose we are right now. This is where we left off. So let's try this. Let's see how loose we are. Not loose enough for that. So let's go here. We're gonna try to wind down. Nope, we're not loose enough for that either. Let's try 160. It's okay. We're gonna normalize at some point. 155. Okay, we're close. We're close. Just a little bit below that. I think we got 2 minutes at 150. Okay, that's pretty close to where we still have some dexterity left. So let's stick with 150. There was a lot of tension here, like the last 30 seconds. That's okay. It's really close. That's a lot of exhaustion. I imagine 140 could be the sweet spot at this point. I just had a thought. It's so interesting that the mania thing about the galloping. I can see what they mean. Like when you're playing you know, like scales, a lot of times when you have finger separation, if you're playing like more than one finger, like 3 fingers, it is like a galloping motion. It's a what is that thing called? You're rotating, like rounding. So you're doing like this thing, which is so interesting. And it's such a coincidence that when you have like a failure in dexterity, you start to gallop too. Huh. Interesting coincidence. I haven't even considered that. I could have gone a lot better. Let's do these two again. Whoops. We're in our element. Eh. Oops. Keep tapping my keys out of habit. The song just constantly make me go off time. It's basically every time the refrain comes up. Speed down, slow down, speed up, slow down. Boy. Well, let's get to listen to this. This will be the last one. Alright. I think we're good. Try to stay rested. Don't push too hard. Today we didn't push that hard. Got a good discussion in. Alright, well. That wraps up day 22. 22nd of December. How do I feel? I think I got my mindset that I will use going into the last week, like the rest of the remaining days. From now on, we're probably gonna just straight up blitz all the way up to the top, right? Straight up blitz from here to here, being as loose as possible, as loose as we can get it, right? Not loose as in speeding way out of control, but just enough while remaining loose. So we can get all the way up here probably in less than an hour. And then we'll slowly, then we'll see how well the drop is. So tomorrow's goal is to just no resting or minimum resting. I did notice some stiffness around like 160-ish, like here. That's when the tension starts coming up. So if I do get tense while trying to remain loose, I'll slow down and maybe pause for 5 seconds or so. And we're just gonna blitz to the top. And then see if we can naturally go down slowly. Like slow our pace down. I think so far over all the days, all the previous days, the highest rate of competence or the most comfortable feeling that I've had so far is from stepping down. So warming up is basically, we have to warm up all the way to the highest BPM. Just get that feeling of getting the fingers moving back and forth, and then slowing down is a lot easier. It kind of feels like drop sets again, doing drop sets. Overload to the top as fast as possible, then do drop sets back down. Although in this case we're not drop setting per se. There are a few, most of these are sets though. Like there are 2 here, right? There are 3 here, so 3 set. This is just 1. And then 1, actually, the 170 is really crowded, actually. I like these songs, we'll just keep them. So, 4 set. Then these are all 1s. So there are some sets in there. Yeah. That'll be what we'll do for tomorrow. Alright, that's a wrap. We're gonna change gears again. Alrightos. And see you next time.
See you next time.